myself was into drugs, deep into drugs back in the 80s, and I know how hard it is to get out of it.
Arnel Pineda's life is in danger after something terrible happened. Arnel Pineda's voice has moved millions of fans around the world since becoming Journey's lead singer. But few knew how close we came to losing him after a terrifying incident during a charity concert in his homeland left him fighting for his life. His remarkable recovery demonstrates the same resilience that carried him from homelessness to stardom. But the details of what happened that night and the aftermath that followed reveal a story more harrowing than fans realized. What began as a triumphant homecoming quickly turned into a nightmare when Arnel collapsed on stage, and the shocking truth behind his mysterious illness would leave even his closest friends stunned. Arnel Pineda's journey to fame is the stuff of legends. Born in Manila to a modest family, his mother died when he was just 13, leaving him homeless on the harsh streets of the Philippines, surviving by collecting bottles and newspaper. Sometimes he had no food for days. But even in his darkest moments, Arnel had his voice, a gift that would eventually change his life. The years following his mother's death were brutal. Arnel slept in parks, under bridges, sometimes in the back of open stores if the owners took pity on him. He collected junk metal to sell to scrap yards, earning just enough for one small meal a day. By 15, he had joined other street children who gathered in Luneta Park, singing for coins from tourists. His natural talent was evident even then, his powerful voice seeming impossibly big coming from his small, undernourished frame. After years of performing with local bands, covering Journey songs in small Manila venues, a fateful YouTube video caught the attention of Journey guitarist Neil Sean, who was searching for a new lead singer. Against all odds, the homeless boy from Manila became the frontman for one of rock's most iconic bands. His audition with Journey in 2007 was the stuff of music legend. Flying to the US for the first time, battling visa issues, jet lag, and overwhelming nerves, Arnel still managed to blow the band away with his pitch-perfect renditions of their most challenging songs. When Journey announced him as their new lead vocalist, skeptics questioned whether fans would accept this unknown Filipino singer, replacing the iconic Steve Perry. But from his first performances, audiences were won over by not just his incredible vocal ability, but his humility, work ethic, and genuine gratitude for his second chance at life. But on March 15, 2023, during a charity performance in his hometown, the fairy tale nearly came to a tragic end when Arnel suddenly collapsed on stage in front of thousands of shocked fans. The event had been months in the planning. Voices for Freedom, a benefit concert to raise funds for victims of human trafficking in Southeast Asia, was Arnel's passion project. He had personally recruited other Filipino artists to join him, and Journey had flown in to headline the show as a gesture of support for their frontman's humanitarian efforts. The outdoor venue in Manila's Rizal Park was packed with over 15,000 attendees, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. "I remember we were performing faithfully," recalls Journey bandmate Jonathan Cain. Arnel had been absolutely crushing it all night. Then suddenly, mid-note, I saw him grab his chest. His face contorted in pain, and before anyone could reach him, he just crumpled to the floor. The moment was captured on thousands of cell phones, the footage later showing the horrifying scene in detail. 1 second, Arnel was hitting a powerful high note, his arms outstretched to the adoring crowd. The next, his expression changed to confusion, then panic, as he clutched at his throat before collapsing unconscious. The music continued for several seconds before the band realized something was seriously wrong. Security rushed the stage as medical personnel fought through the crowd to reach the fallen singer. Cherry Pineda, Arnel's wife, watched in horror from the side of the stage. "It was like time stopped," she later told reporters. "1 minute, he was singing his heart out. The next, I thought I was watching him die." The concert ended abruptly as paramedics performed emergency treatment on stage before rushing Arnel to a waiting ambulance. Journey band members huddled together in shock as Neil Schon made a brief announcement asking for prayers and understanding from the crowd. Social media exploded with speculation and concern as videos of the collapse spread worldwide. As Arnel was rushed to Manila's medical center, rumors began spreading like wildfire. Heart attack, stroke, exhaustion. But the truth would prove far more disturbing. The medical team quickly ruled out common causes. His heart was strong, no signs of stroke. Yet his condition continued deteriorating as doctors desperately searched for answers. Dr. Maria Santos, the emergency physician who first treated Arnel, described his symptoms as baffling. His vital signs were declining rapidly, but not in a pattern consistent with cardiac issues. His pupils were dilated, he was experiencing muscle rigidity, and his respiratory function was becoming compromised despite no apparent lung damage. As Arnel was moved to intensive care and placed on a ventilator, specialists were called in from across Manila. His condition stabilized briefly before taking another downturn in the early morning hours, sending the hospital staff scrambling once again to save his life. 24 hours after his collapse, toxicology reports revealed a shocking truth. Arnel had been poisoned. A powerful neurotoxin was coursing through his system, yet attacking his respiratory functions and threatening his life. When the doctors told me it was poison, Cherry recalled, tears welling in her eyes, my mind couldn't process it. Who would want to hurt Arnel? He has always been so kind to everyone. The toxin identified in his system was tetrodotoxin, a potent neurotoxin found in certain marine animals like pufferfish. In its purified form, it's extremely rare and difficult to obtain, typically only available in specialized research laboratories. The presence of this exotic poison immediately transformed the medical emergency into a criminal investigation. Manila police secured the hospital room and began interviewing everyone who had been backstage at the concert. The Pineda family was placed under protection as authorities tried to determine whether the poisoning was targeted or if there might be additional attempts on Arnel's life. As police launched an investigation, doctors raced against time to save the singer's life. Journey's management flew in specialists from Singapore and the United States to assist in his treatment. Neil Schon and other band members rushed to Manila, keeping vigil at the hospital while fans worldwide sent prayers and support. Dr. Kenneth Lee, a toxicologist from Singapore General Hospital who specialized in marine toxins, arrived within 48 hours of Arnel's collapse. Tetrodotoxin poisoning is extremely rare and has no specific antidote, he explained to the worried family. Treatment is supportive care, maintaining breathing and cardiac function until the body can clear the toxin naturally. The first 72 hours are critical. Those first 72 hours, Neil Schon remembers, were the longest of my life. We didn't know if he would make it through each night. The doctors were honest with us about how serious it was, and all we could do was wait and hope. Journey fans organized prayer vigils outside the hospital and around the world. Pray for Arnel trended globally on social media as artists from across the music industry sent messages of support. The Philippine government assigned additional security to the hospital as the investigation intensified. Initial police investigation revealed a disturbing sequence of events. Security footage showed an unidentified individual accessing the backstage area before the concert, approaching the table where refreshments were set up for the performers. The water bottle Arnel used during his performance had been contaminated with a rare toxin typically found in certain marine animals, not commonly available to the public. Detective Manuel Reyes of the Manila Police Department's Major Crimes Division led the investigation. The footage showed a person wearing a venue staff uniform and credentials, he reported. But when we interviewed all staff members, it became clear this individual was not actually employed by the venue. The security breach was sophisticated. The imposter had used professionally forged credentials and appeared familiar with venue protocols, suggesting this was not an impulsive act, but a carefully planned attack. This wasn't a random act or an accident. Someone had deliberately targeted Arnel Pineda. But who would want to harm the beloved singer? And why? As police dug deeper, a disturbing pattern emerged. In the weeks before the charity concert, Arnel had received several threatening messages. He had dismissed them as the work of an overzealous fan, never imagining they would escalate to attempted murder. These messages, sent to Arnel's social media accounts and personal email, contained vague warnings like, "Stay away from matters that don't concern you," and "Not all charity is good for your health." Arnel had mentioned them briefly to his security team, but hadn't taken them seriously. In the music industry, receiving strange messages from fans was common, and Arnel's natural optimism led him to overlook the sinister tone. The investigation uncovered a disturbing truth. The threats stemmed from Arnel's involvement in an anti-human trafficking initiative. His foundation had recently partnered with authorities to rescue young girls from trafficking rings in Manila. His high-profile support had helped expose a powerful network of criminals who now wanted revenge. Arnel never told us about the threats, Cherry shared with investigators. He didn't want to worry anyone. That's just who he is, always thinking of others before himself. 6 months earlier, Arnel had established the Freedom Voice Foundation, dedicated to combating human trafficking in the Philippines. Using his celebrity status, he had brought unprecedented attention to the issue, working closely with both local authorities and international organizations. A documentary featuring Arnel visiting shelters and speaking with survivors had aired nationally in the Philippines, putting a spotlight on trafficking operations that had previously operated with impunity. Most significantly, information provided through Arnel's foundation had led to a major police raid just 2 months before the concert, resulting in the rescue of 23 young women and the arrest of several mid-level trafficking operatives. The raid had disrupted a lucrative operation and put pressure on higher-level criminals who had previously remained untouchable. As Arnel fought for his life in the ICU, police uncovered more evidence linking the poisoning to a known human trafficking syndicate operating throughout Southeast Asia. The charity event where Arnel collapsed had raised over $200,000 to build a shelter for rescued trafficking victims, directly threatening the criminal organization's operations. Detective Reyes explained, "This organization had been operating for decades with virtual immunity due to corruption and intimidation. Arnel's foundation changed that by creating too much public awareness for officials to ignore. They couldn't bribe or threaten their way out of the spotlight he created." For 5 agonizing days, Arnel remained in critical condition, his legendary voice silenced as machines helped him breathe. Doctors worked around the clock, administering experimental antidotes while monitoring his vital organs for damage from the toxin. Cherry barely left his side, sleeping in a chair in his room. Journey band members took shifts keeping vigil, ensuring that Arnel was never alone. Neil Sean postponed all band commitments indefinitely, telling management, "Nothing matters except Arnel right now." Outside the hospital, hundreds of fans maintained a constant presence, holding candlelight vigils, singing Journey songs, and displaying banners with messages of support. The outpouring of love from the Filipino community was overwhelming, with many sharing stories of how Arnel's rags-to-riches journey had inspired their own dreams. On day 6, a breakthrough came. The specialized antidote began to work, and Arnel showed the first signs of improvement. His oxygen levels stabilized, and he regained consciousness, though he remained extremely weak. "When he first opened his eyes," Neil Sean recalls, "and squeezed my hand, I knew our prayers had been answered." That fighting spirit that got him off the streets of Manila and onto worldwide stages was still there. Arnel's first words upon regaining consciousness were about the charity concert. "Did we raise enough?" he whispered to Cherry, his voice barely audible. Even in his weakened state, his concern was for the cause rather than his own condition. As news of the poisoning became public, outrage spread throughout the Philippines and the global music community. Journey fans organized a 24-hour worldwide prayer vigil, with gatherings in major cities showing support for the beloved vocalist. The Philippine government assigned round-the-clock security to Arnel's hospital room as the investigation intensified. Within weeks, 3 suspects were apprehended, including a backstage worker who had been bribed to allow access to the restricted area before the concert. The breakthrough in the investigation came when police identified the fake staff member from the security footage. Using facial recognition software and tips from informants, they traced him to a known associate of the trafficking network. This led to the arrest of a former police officer who had been working as security for the criminal syndicate, and eventually to one of the organization's mid-level managers who had ordered the hit. International law enforcement agencies joined the investigation, recognizing that the trafficking network extended beyond Philippine borders. Evidence gathered during the poisoning investigation provided new leads in ongoing trafficking cases across Southeast Asia. Arnel's recovery was slow and challenging. The toxin had damaged his respiratory system, and doctors warned that his singing voice might be permanently affected, a devastating prospect for a man whose voice had been his salvation. For weeks, he couldn't speak above a whisper. Specialized vocal therapists worked with him daily, but uncertainty loomed about whether he would ever perform again. Journey postponed their upcoming tour indefinitely, issuing a statement that Arnel's health and recovery were the priority. Dr. Patricia Cruz, a leading voice rehabilitation specialist, was brought in to assess the damage. The toxin affected the nerves controlling his vocal cords, she explained. There was significant inflammation and partial paralysis. Recovery would require not just time for healing, but intensive therapy to retrain the muscles. The prognosis was uncertain. Some patients with similar nerve damage never fully recovered their previous vocal abilities. For a singer of Arnel's caliber, even slight permanent changes could be career-ending. The range, power, and control that had made him the perfect voice for Journey's demanding songs might never return to their former glory. Cherry rarely left his side throughout his hospitalization, sleeping in a chair beside his bed. "I kept thinking about how much he had already overcome in his life," she said in a rare interview. From losing his mother as a child, to living on the streets, to battling addiction in his younger years. If anyone could fight through this, it was Arnel. The mental toll was as challenging as the physical one. Arnel battled depression as he faced the possibility of losing the gift that had defined his life. There were days, Cherry confided, when he would try to make a sound and nothing would come out, and I would see tears streaming down his face. But the next day, he would be back at therapy, trying again. Neil Sean visited regularly, often bringing an acoustic guitar to play softly in Arnel's room. On one particularly difficult day, he reminded Arnel, "Your voice didn't make you who you are. Who you are gave power to your voice. Whatever happens, that hasn't changed." 3 months after the poisoning, Arnel was finally discharged from the hospital, though his recovery was far from complete. He retreated to a private location with Cherry and their children, continuing intensive therapy away from the public eye. His daily routine was grueling. Respiratory exercises to strengthen his lungs, specialized vocal therapy, physical therapy to regain the stamina performance requires, and sessions with a psychologist to process the trauma of the attack. Progress was measured in the smallest increments, being able to sustain a note for 1 second longer, reaching a slightly higher pitch, projecting his voice just a bit further. Rumors swirled about whether he would ever return to Journey. Some music publications speculated that the band might need to find a replacement, as the damage to Arnel's vocal cords might be permanent. Neil Sean addressed these rumors directly on social media. Journey has one singer, and his name is Arnel Pineda. We will wait as long as it takes. Some journeys have unexpected detours, but we'll be back on the road together when he's ready. The band's loyalty touched Arnel deeply. In an industry known for quickly replacing band members when issues arise, Journey's unwavering support demonstrated the genuine friendship that had developed since Arnel joined the band. The other members continued to work on new music, sending Arnel demos with the understanding that vocals would be added when and if he recovered. Meanwhile, despite his personal struggle, Arnel remained committed to the cause that had made him a target. From his recovery location, he continued to direct the activities of his foundation, participating in virtual meetings when his voice allowed and making decisions about fund allocation for anti-trafficking initiatives. The poisoning incident had inadvertently brought unprecedented attention to the human trafficking crisis. Donations to the Freedom Voice Foundation tripled, allowing for expanded operations. International organizations reached out to partner with Arnel's foundation, recognizing the power of his personal story to mobilize support. 6 months after the poisoning, a video appeared on Arnel's social media accounts. With no introduction, the clip showed him seated on a stool in a simple room, acoustic guitar in hand. For 90 seconds, he sang a portion of Faithfully, the very song he had been performing when he collapsed. His voice, while not yet at full strength, carried the unmistakable power and emotion that had made him the perfect successor to Steve Perry years earlier. The video ended with a simple message: "Still believing, see you soon." The clip went viral instantly, garnering millions of views within hours. Fans rejoiced at this sign of recovery, flooding social media with messages of support and relief. Music critics noted subtle changes in his voice, a slightly raspier quality on certain notes, a more measured approach to the highest parts of his range. But many also commented that these changes added a new dimension to his interpretation, a hard-earned emotional depth that transcended technical perfection. Dr. Cruz, his vocal therapist, later explained, "What Arnel accomplished was nothing short of miraculous. Most patients with his level of damage would have given up. He approached his recovery with the same determination that took him from the streets to stardom. He refused to accept limitations." 8 months after the poisoning, against his doctor's recommendations, but with characteristic determination, Arnel made a surprise appearance at a Journey concert in Los Angeles. The band had been performing with guest vocalists for a few charity shows, with proceeds going to anti-human trafficking organizations. Midway through the concert, Neil Sean addressed the sold-out crowd. "We have a very special friend who wanted to say hello." The arena erupted as Arnel walked on stage, embracing each band member before taking the microphone. "I'm not supposed to be doing this yet," he told the audience with his characteristic humility. "But some songs need to be sung, and some messages can't wait." With that, the band launched into Don't Stop Believing as the crowd rose to their feet. Though his voice occasionally strained on the highest notes, the heart and soul that had always defined Arnel's performances was undimmed. Fans and band members alike were moved to tears during the performance. Jonathan Cain later described it as the most emotional rendition of that song I've ever been part of. The moment transcended music, becoming a testament to human resilience and the power of community. The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. For the criminal organization that had targeted him, their attempt to silence Arnel had backfired spectacularly. The poisoning incident had brought international attention to the human trafficking crisis in Southeast Asia. Donations to Arnel's foundation increased tenfold, funding new shelters and education programs for vulnerable children. Several major celebrities, inspired by Arnel's courage, joined the cause, using their platforms to raise awareness about trafficking. What had begun as one man's effort became a movement that transcended individual personalities, creating a sustained focus on a crisis that had too often remained in the shadows. The main perpetrators were eventually brought to justice, facing lengthy prison sentences for attempted murder and human trafficking crimes. Their network, once operating in shadows, was exposed and dismantled through international cooperation, spurred by the attack on the beloved singer. The trial of those involved in the poisoning plot revealed the extensive reach of the trafficking organization, implicating several government officials and leading to a broader anti-corruption initiative. Arnel attended key portions of the trial, his presence a powerful symbol of the resilience of those who stand against exploitation. Today, Arnel continues his recovery, working with vocal specialists to regain his full range. Journey has slowly resumed touring, with Arnel pacing himself carefully during performances. Some nights, he shares vocal duties with guest singers. On others, he tackles the full set, his endurance growing stronger with each performance. His voice has evolved. Certain notes that once came easily now require more technique, while his lower range has developed new richness and depth. Critics have noted that, while technically different from his pre-poisoning performances, his current singing carries an emotional weight and authenticity that connects even more powerfully with audiences. "The poison was meant to silence me," Arnel reflected in a recent interview. "Not just my voice, but what I stand for. What they didn't understand is that my voice has carried me through much worse. The streets of Manila taught me that when you have nothing, your voice becomes everything." The ongoing recovery has forced Arnel to develop new singing techniques and approaches. Working with vocal coaches, he's discovered ways to accomplish with technique what once came naturally, adapting his performance style while maintaining the emotional connection that has always been his hallmark. Journey's newest album, recorded after Arnel's recovery, features songs specifically written to showcase his evolved vocal abilities. Neil Sean composed guitar parts that complement rather than compete with Arnel's voice, creating space for his more nuanced approach. Arnel's foundation has expanded its mission, working not just to rescue trafficking victims but to address the root causes of vulnerability. Poverty, lack of education, and limited opportunities, the very conditions he experienced as a homeless child. The foundation now operates 3 shelters in the Philippines, providing not just immediate safety for trafficking survivors, but education, job training, and psychological support. A scholarship program named Don't Stop Believing helps vulnerable children stay in school, reducing their risk of exploitation. "Sometimes surviving means you have a purpose yet to fulfill," he says. "I believe I'm still here because there's more to do, more to sing, more children to help." His near-death experience has altered Arnel's perspective on his career and legacy. While once focused primarily on proving himself worthy of filling Steve Perry's shoes in Journey, he now sees his music as a platform for change. Each concert includes a moment where he speaks briefly about human trafficking, inviting fans to join the fight against exploitation. For fans who witnessed his collapse on stage that fateful night in Manila, Arnel's return to performance was nothing short of miraculous. But for those who know his life story, the orphan street kid who never stopped believing, it was simply the next chapter in an extraordinary journey that continues to inspire millions. The poisoning attempt, meant to silence and advocate for the vulnerable, instead amplified his message and mobilized thousands to join his cause. What his attackers failed to understand was that Arnel Pineda's true strength never came from his vocal cords alone, but from the spirit that had carried him from the streets of Manila to arenas worldwide. His near-death experience has only strengthened his commitment to using his platform for positive change. "Every time I step on stage now," he says, "I sing for those who don't yet have a voice. The journey doesn't end until everyone is free." In music circles, Arnel's comeback is already considered legendary, not just for the quality of his performances, but for what they represent about human resilience. As one critic wrote, "Pineda doesn't just sing Journey's anthems of hope and perseverance, he embodies them." His life story has become inseparable from the songs, lending them an authenticity and emotional depth that transcends the notes. As Journey continues touring with Arnel at the helm, each performance serves as both entertainment and inspiration. A reminder that even the darkest moments can't silence a voice determined to be heard. And for the countless victims of trafficking who now find hope through his foundation, Arnel's most important legacy may not be the songs he sings, but the lives transformed, because he refused to be silenced.